It's always so weird to like hit record and then start talking to a computer. I'll never, I don't know if I'll ever feel at home with that per se, but that's why I laugh, because it feels ridiculous to do it. Greetings, my friends. Mkwann here. The Gregorian calendar date is December 3rd, 2025, and the tropical calendar date is the 11th of Sagittarius. And I'll actually explain what I mean by that a little bit later on in this video. But I guess a couple things. I don't think I've made a video since I've been in South Carolina. I've thought about making videos during that time. I just haven't, and just so much has occurred, things which I wanted to comment on, things I want to share, but that time has passed, and now I'm going to talk about the things which are present within me, at least, currently. So today's December 3rd, and yesterday was my birthday, and this is going to be a good time for me to talk about cycles, solar cycles, lunar cycles. I'll even get into the Jupiter cycle, why it matters, and yeah, we'll see where it goes with this. The reason I pause is this is a really big topic. Big in a couple ways. One is it's complex. It's complex in its subtleties and the values for needing to know this, this cycle information. And so I recognize that it can be very dry, and this medium of like recording videos and people watching it, I think, is kind of dry to begin with, as opposed to sitting across from a human being and feeling the energy of being in the same space as someone. So, a snake just just went by, and as soon as I said "ooh," it kind of freaked out a bit. Where was I going? So it's big in terms of like, it's a big topic in terms of a lot of different things. To really grasp it, you need to take in a lot of pieces of information. But it's also big on a subjective level, meaning that it's meaningful to me. This is what I think really matters. Like, of the stuff which I record and I talk about, like, this is the stuff which really matters. But it's also, as I said, it's also some of the hardest things to talk about on this medium. So I've put together some slides, and I've been thinking about this for about a week now, and just haven't really gotten to an internal space where I'm like, okay, I'm ready to talk about this. So I don't know if I'm ever going to land in that that space. I'm like, okay, now is the time. So I'm just going to jump into it. You might need to watch this a couple times, but this is, at least in my opinion, what we're going to cover here is gold. Like, really, really important, valuable stuff. So that being said, let's just jump right in. So at the end of the day, what inspires me and moves me is this idea of being lucid in the dream and disentangled from the matrix. That's both a fair description of how I manage my own life and internal world, but then also in terms of the type of videos which I do. The Charlie Church analysis, the pointing out all of this stuff is really to demonstrate, like, the structure, if you will, of the dream. And it's not just about being lucid in the dream, but also being disentangled from the matrix. And the matrix is the dominant collective dream that has created the environment that we think of as reality. And so to be lucid and disentangled from that, it's the disentangling which I think is really important and is separate from a lot of other practices or teachings of becoming lucid. And I've got Inception up here because that movie Inception is one of the best ways of kind of explaining this experience of being human, being alive, being human, being somewhat aware in this realm which we're calling Earth. When you watch this movie Inception, obviously it is about dreams. I'm assuming you're familiar with it. And another fact of it, and which I think is true of like the bigger story it's pointing at, is like when you're done watching Inception, you don't know what you just watched. You're like, well, hold on, I think I get it. But when you begin to start to lean into some of the details of the plot, you recognize that there's some things which are unclear or are confusing or paradoxical. And that very much is a description of the experience, is when we lean in more to like what is actually happening, we begin to realize that maybe we're not so clear with what we think is happening. So that's why I think Inception is a good metaphor, but I think it's also a good, like it's an exercise to watch it and to kind of like deconstruct it is in a way an entrainment with the disentanglement of the dream that we're actually living. On a side note, I've been thinking about, I'm not certain exactly how it would be structured, but some sort of discussion group. I don't know if that's the right word, but like to watch this movie again and then to kind of talk it through. I don't know how that would be done. I'm not really excited about Zoom or anything like that, but that might be a way it would be done. But if anyone is interested in that, let me know. Let me know if that would be something you'd be interested in doing. Anyway, we're going to keep on going. So, lucid in the dream, disentangled from the matrix. Fact of life. We, like all of us, when I say we, I mean all of us, are entrained to the sun and the moon movements and timings just by being under its orbit. Without being consciously aware, it just happens. Entrainment is like it is a description, or it's a way that this realm works. If you've ever seen any of the demonstrations, there are lots of videos where it would show a lot of different pendulums which are spinning at or moving at different orbits, and then they will eventually come into sync. That is the entrainment which I'm talking about. Everything here is, if we want to go down to like, you break everything down into like energy, or a waveform, like everything is like a movement. Your body, your consciousness, like all this sort of stuff is different things which can be entrained. And without having to define like this is what the sun is, or this is what the moon is, and this is how it got here, or this is it's fake or it's real, or all of the different things which are unclear as to what and where and how the sun and the moon are. What we can, or at least where we should at least begin with it, is just like the observational truth that we can see the sun and the moon, and not only that, everyone sees the sun and the moon, so we know it's for everyone who's on Earth, or we all have equal access to it. And most dominantly, the sun is immensely dominant, its influence on all things on Earth. We see that in terms of like how plant life and trees and animals all respond to like the setting and the rising, the setting of the sun. And we know that the human body responds in many ways to sunlight and all this different stuff. So we know like it has a physical, experiential influence on us, but there's also, whether you think about it or not, this is what's happening. There is a movement, there is a rhythm of the sun and the moon as independent objects, but they move together and they create like a rhythm together. And because they're so dominant, and because they influence, or they're above us and they go around us, everyone who is on Earth, like we're all influenced by them, and we're all entrained to it. Whether we recognize it or not, we're entrained to it. That's what the fact of life is. So one gets lost within and entangled with the matrix when overt and covert symbology or meaning is anchored to the timing entrainment of the sun and the moon. Before you get into anything about like what this experience is, or where it is, or what the moon is, or what you are, and we just state from the fact that, okay, we're going to start this inquiry from the fact that we know we're here, and we'll build up from it. The fact of life is that the moon and the sun they move and they create the beginnings of time. And I'll explain that a little bit later. But the understanding of time, as in the lag between events, is we've got a solid point of reference for everyone on Earth through the movements of the sun and the moon. And the sun and the moon, they move and they're there before we get into any meaning. But as soon as meaning is tied to it, like both like literal meaning, such as mythologies of what the sun and the moon are and how they came about, and they could be ancient culture mythologies, or they could be the mythology of the modern scientific world. They're just stories, and you would still be under the influence of the sun and the moon, and the sun and the moon will still exist before there is any story tied to it. So that would be an overt story. But we're also filled with covert stories of sun and the moon, particularly the sun in the modern world, as so many of the religions are covert solar stories, the Son of God, all of that sort of stuff. I've talked about that a lot. And so on the subconscious realm of being a human is like, there are these stories told about the sun that are influencing the inner world and mind and interpretation and meaning. There's the known overt stories, like all of that's happening. And because it's not ever like really talked about, like really like detailed wise, like the sun, like, well, this is the sun and this is the moon and this is its movements and this is what's happening, and then these are the stories, and this is what's like, this is where we jump off from just being a observable fact to saying that this means this has an anchor. Like, it's very rarely like, do we ever spend time or attention like really leaning into those details. And that's what I'm talking about. Like, this is kind of dry, but it's really, really important to become disentangled from all of this sort of like sun moon stuff, which is like driving in many ways or setting the tone towards experiential life, your life here. Consciousness merges with what's real, and That's like the, the sun and the moon is just existing and having rhythm and it being there, and then created reality, that being the stories tied to it. When consciousness merge with the two of them, and those lines begin to blur, and those lines blur because you've never decided to really define the difference between those lines, and consciousness, when these lines are blurs, like, it removes these boundaries of clarity. And this blurring of lines and this removing of boundaries is the foundation of the Matrix's dream. Like, on that first fundamental level, like, where everything is just kind of confused and you're not really certain what's going on. You don't even realize that there's a thing which is going on. That is the foundation where the Matrix dream takes place. It's like the movie Inception. Like, you watch the movie Inception, you think like, oh, I've woken up from this dream or that dream, or whose dream am I in, or like, what even world is this in? Those questions aren't necessarily meant to be answered as much as it is to be recognized that that's occurring. And so that's part of being the lucid in the dream, is the recognition of, like, that's just how it works. But the disentanglement, like being able to have discernment between what is real and what is not real. And discernment is different than judgment. Judgment comes after discernment. Judgment is based upon values and preferences. And most people jump immediately. The Matrix trains consciousness to go immediately to judgment and not discernment. Discernment doesn't really give a fuck. Discernment just recognizes truth for truth in order to get your bearings. Okay, where am I? What's going on? Okay, this is true for this is true for that. Let me understand what I can understand, and then I move forward. That's what getting your bearings is, metaphorically at least. So, all right, let's keep on going. The mechanisms we use to kind of find our way through time and space in the dream are really, it's the same friggin' mechanism, but it's never explained this way. But when you see it, it becomes very, very clear. And so let's begin with our idea of the compass. The compass talks us through space, physical reality, north, south, east, west, and we call these the cardinal directions. We've got this clock, and our clock is one of the ways which we measure time, particularly time that is closer to the present moment. Like a clock is closer to the present moment, as opposed to thinking about longer cycles that go on for really, really long time. That's further away from the present moment. But a clock is like, when you're on the clock, you're not exactly in the present moment, but you're close to it, because anyway, the clock is set up the same way. I call them the cardinal times. I don't know if it's actually referred to that, but where the 12, the 3, the 6, and the 9 are on the face of an analog clock is significant. It lines up with our cardinal directions. And then we go and we look at a zodiacal wheel or an astro wheel, and this is space-time. This is a combination of space and time, and it's oriented by what's called the cardinal signs. Aries. This is, I have an example of a astrological chart or a zodiac where it's in alignment with the first sign, which is Aries, is aligned with the first house, and the first house begins right here, which is at the 9 on the time. This actually is, the orientation in astrology is a little bit different. The south would be on top. Let me see if this will work. No, that's not what I want. Yeah, kind of like this and this. This is how the astrological clock is oriented, with south on the top, west on the right, north on the bottom, and east on the left, because this corresponds with the east, and this is the alignment of the first sign with the first house with the east where it begins. These are all the same. When you begin to recognize that that this is the same sort of methodology, and we're dealing with space-time. Space-time is, you can't have one without the other. In the same way that you can't have a magnetic field without an electrical current. Like one begets one. And I'm going to go into that. Like that's a literal thing. That's not just like a concept in which I'm describing. Like it can be known with greater clarity, but we'll keep on going on. But for now, like, know that these are your tools for getting your bearings, for awakening to where you are in the dream, to become lucid in the dream and disentangled from the matrix. Implies or requires, an understanding of these tools that have been around all along, like right in front of you. So, all right, let's go back to my birthday. So it was my birthday yesterday, and I use Astro charts a lot. Astro charts are, like when I show an Astro chart, it's basically I'm showing a compass of time-space. Like in the same way that a compass, if you were in the woods and you wanted to identify a direction, like the compass will help. Like these charts are time-space charts, all right? So the first thing I want to go and explain is, so like the birthday. Sometimes birthdays are referred to as solar return. To me, that always feels a little bit clunky to say that, but it's a very, very accurate way of describing what we call a birthday. And the birthday is a total example of matrix dream. So when you look at this, when you look at any of these time-space compasses, first and foremost, when you're looking at this, imagine yourself, you're right in the center of this circle. The circle represents you in your physical body standing on Earth. Okay? You're right here. That's in the middle. And this line from here to here, the 9-3 line, the east-west line, is the ascendant-descendant line. It's all the same thing. So, that's one of the ways which this is a compass. And what it does is it shows you where all of the heavenly bodies, or the different pendulums, if you will, that are orbiting, that are going around us and around us with different frequencies, time frequencies, where they are at that exact moment in time. So that is first known by, like, look, you're thinking about yourself here, standing on Earth. This is the horizon, and this is what is in the visible sky, at that moment. So that's one, and I've talked about this a lot. That's one of the pieces of information which an astro chart gives you. Is it gives you the bearings of where all the planets are relative to the horizon at a given moment and a given place. But it also is what we call a calendar. And so our calendar, our primary calendar, the Gregorian calendar, it is a measurement of the sun's cycle. So the sun, this is the symbol of the sun right here, the circle, the orange circle with the dot in it, as does every single one of these glyphs. They represent either a planet or an asteroid. They all just go round and round and round and round and round this. And they go round it at different speeds. And here you are, right here, right in the middle. It's going around you. If you want to imagine you're lying on a massage table, and you got someone standing on top of you with a pendulum, and they're spinning a pendulum on you. Like that's a beginning for many types of energy treatments, if you will. And then depending upon a whole bunch of different things on that pendulum, what is the material of what's being spun, the length of the strap, which is holding the weight of the pendulum, the speed of it. All of those are textures which someone who is involved with energy manipulation would use. That same thing is happening to all of us. Whatever the hell Earth is, whatever the hell this realm is, what is happening is the sun, the moon, the planets are going around us. And we operate at we don't see them moving. Like a pendulum you can watch go round and round and round. If I held a physical pendulum in my hand, you could see that. But because of the scales, we don't actually see the movement happening in real time, but it's happening. We can deduce it. There are many ways to realize that it's happening. So back to the calendar. So each one of these planets you could think of as independent pendulums, which are spinning around at different speeds with different qualities, and we're all underneath it. But the most dominant one is the sun. And when we look at the astro chart, like the astro chart is grounded to the sun's, or we understand timing first and foremost through the sun. Let me say it that way. So it takes 365 days, sunrise to sunrise event. That's what a day is. It does that 365 times, and then the sun also makes a full orbit around us. And so that's the solar return. So, okay, so when someone says a solar return, they're saying the sun has returned to where it was in its 365-day cycle, where it was on the day you were born. And so that can be measured by a calendar. And we measure that, for me, December 2nd. It was December 2nd. On December 2nd was when my mother gave birth to me. On calendar language. But we could also see, this is December 2nd, 1971. If you look closely, let me zoom this in. You could see the sun is at 10 degrees Sagittarius. What we're saying here is, we're describing the same phenomenon using two different systems, just like Celsius and Fahrenheit uses two different systems. So the sun on December 2nd is also at 10 degrees Sagittarius using the tropical system. If you used a different zodiac, such as sidereal, it would be at a different degree, but the same logic holds true. There's a reason why tropical makes sense to like our calendar, and I'm not going to go into it now, but there is a reason, and there's also a reason for using sidereal. It's not so much one is better than the other, it's that one tells you different pieces of information, just as Celsius and Fahrenheit describe the same thing, but because their systems are different, they also give different pieces of information. So now let me go and prove this to you. This is December 2nd, 2025. This is the chart from yesterday on my birthday. This was at 3:30. So look right here. So the sun at 3:30 is setting. It's coming near the western horizon, but it's above it. When I was born at 7:30 p.m., the sun had set, so it was below the horizon. That's what this is showing you. But the sun's at 10 degrees Sagittarius in the annual sun orbit, in the sun's year. But in the sun's day, it's below the horizon. Here we see on this chart at 3:30, the sun is above the horizon, but it's still at 10 degrees Sagittarius because it's December 2nd. They're one and the same. Today's December 3rd. So today the sun is at 11 degrees Sagittarius, and tomorrow the sun will be at 12 degrees Sagittarius. It's almost a perfect match. It's not a perfect match because there are 360 degrees of the zodiac and there are 365 days of the calendar. So that 5 days provides, there are 5 times where the sun is on a degree for 2 days. But the other 355 degrees are the same each year. So when someone says solar return, they're recognizing, like, before you get into any meaning, you're recognizing the sun, which is the primary timekeeper, is at the place it was when you were born. And this is a friggin' mystery. And one of the few clues you do have is where the sun was when you were born. So we're just going to recognize that that's a thing there. We can begin with that. And then you go and you build into it. You could build into it astrologically and say that it has meaning from an astrological perspective, or you could go more culturally. And so culturally, like, a birthday's a thing, right? Like, you know, a birthday is, think about it, like, as a child, particularly from the ages of, like, let's say 5 to 12 is probably like the peak of the birthday experience, where, like, for that one day the child gets whatever it wants and it gets to eat cake and everyone treats them special. And there's a truth to that, like, in terms of recognizing something special within an individual. But now we can begin to see where some of the foundations of emotional histories, meanings, false self, ego, all of that egregore that lives inside of each body, which people act as if that was who they are, it begins to hold weight. The dream begins to have reality. So now, like, the birthday has meaning. It's not just the solar return to the same place. Now it means something. It means something personally. Like, you know, I had good birthday memories. I had bad birthday memories. Whatever it is, like, now there's meaning. And now there's also a count. If you know Danny Katz, I've done a lot of podcasts with her. She is, she's really, really solid in how she holds her energetic frame, where she won't talk about age. She's like, no, age is a spell. And she's absolutely right. Like, we begin, like, in this model of matrix paradigm conditioning dream world, is that each time the birthday happens, you get one older, and there's the implication of all the things that happen. And, well, I'm not even going to get into I won't even get into, like, you know, where that story begins to fall down. I'm just going to recognize that it's a story, and it becomes entrained within meaning, and it becomes entrained within meaning and with feeling and with all of this different sort of stuff. But at the same time, it's accurate. Like, if you're counting solar returns, like, it's accurate. You could count lunar returns. Like, you know, the moon makes a full cycle every 27 days. That's where it gets interesting. The moon makes a full cycle is it 27 or 25? It's either 27 or 25 days. But the lunation cycle from new moon to new moon is 29 days. This is where, like, it gets really, really, in a certain way, dry. Like, I'm going to go back to dry. Like, it's not, like, sexy, like talking about, like, you know, Hollywood movies or anything like that. But this is, I've used this phrase many times, and particularly if you've seen and taken the grounding consciousness course, the Dennis Rodman principle. Like, something happens which is greater than the sum of its parts when you use your rational mind to really, really lean into and understand something with dry detail. That's what Dennis Rodman was doing when he was watching and counting the rotations of the basketball when someone would shoot it. He is just doing something very, very dry, but something else happened. And so as you begin to understand, like, all of this timing and the movements and how it works and how they're calculated between, like, the sun and the moon and all this stuff, that we are always underneath in this mystery, whatever the hell they are there going around us. when you do this practice, what I'm describing is you're applying the Dennis Rodman principle. And what's happening is you are beginning to have clarity within the dream. And what is happening is you are disentangling from it. Like, that is the byproduct of understanding this. That's why I say, like, you might want to watch this video a couple times, because this is knowable stuff. In fact, it's probably, I would suggest, the most important knowledge a person, an individualized piece of consciousness needs to have grounded within their rational mind is how it works. And the purpose isn't that, oh, if I know how it works, I'm going to suddenly have a key to the mysteries of life. What's happening is when you know how it works, you are becoming disentangled from the dream that you didn't even realize that you were dreaming, that you were participating with it. So, all right. So birthdays still matter because, like, you know, what matters is you're the star of your movie. I'm the star of my movie. Everyone is the star of their own movie. And so there is a recognition of both, like, you have to honor your movie, but then at the same time be respectful of the fact that everyone else has to honor their own movie. So, all right. So what did I do for my birthday? So this is kind of cool. I think it is, at least. So right by where I'm staying in St. Petersburg is this. And this is a sundial. It's a sundial art piece. And on this slab right here, engraved in it, are the different months. And you stand on the month which it's at, and then your body will cast a shadow, and that shadow will fall somewhere along one of these stones right here. And where the shadow falls will tell you what time it is. Like, it's absolutely like, it's phenomenal. And no one knows about this. Like, I come to this park. This park right here is probably 2 blocks from where I'm recording this video, where I'm staying right now. And it's a very popular park. It's right on the water. No one knows what it is. Like, even the people who live here, they might even know it's a sundial, but they don't know how it works. It's not really explained how it works here, but it's kind of intuitive if you pay a little attention. So anyway, this is right at Tampa Bay, and this is a literal way of enacting with time and the sun in real time and all that sort of stuff. And so what I did was, this is the starboard. What is the starboard? The starboard is just a 3-dimensional version of this. And I went there and I built on here. I have 2 sets of the heavenly bodies, and I built the set of where I built this set. I put one set for where the planets were when I was born, and I put another set for, actually I did 7:30 a.m. or 7 a.m. It was sunrise. And I put the starboard with both my chart and the chart of the moment on this bigger sundial while the sun rose. So what is that? That is, like, nothing magic happens. Like, you know, by doing that, like a door did not open up in the ethers and out walked like the Wizard of Oz. Like, that doesn't happen. What happens is, you know, obviously, like, you know, I'm a rarity because, you know, I take this to an extreme, but I want to show you what it looks like. Like, it doesn't have to look like this, but I want to explain to you the inspiration behind it. The inspiration is both to provide, to demonstrate to myself, or to embody, like, all of the knowledge and understanding I have of the physical properties of this mysterious realm, you know, understanding how it all works and my bearings and all of the bearings, but then also with that subjective experience of being human. Like, we're all living a dream. Like, it is all a dream. This is a dreamscape. This is a dream world. It's a shadow realm. It's a dream. You're going to have a dream. The whole thing is a dream. Like, that's what the movie Inception is about. Is like, okay, well, if it's all a dream, all the dreams overlap, and becoming the author of your own dream, or at least the co-author of your dream, while having it at least disentangled from the matrix dream. Like, obviously this is a matrix thing. This is definitely within the matrix, but it's disentangled. And that can be done. In fact, that's what the whole personal holy days is all about. The personal holy days is, well, before I get into that, so there's a truth in like, quote unquote, celebrating one's birthday. Like, there's a truth in the recognition of that. That truth has just been lost in the greater paradigm dream, or at least that's how I would describe it. So now going to the personal holy days. The personal holy days, and I've talked about that a lot, is using the same logic of what a solar return is, but expanding that to one's chart, expanding that to the other placements in one's chart, and corresponding them to calendar dates. And what it's doing is then, throughout a solar year, which is our dominant year, it's providing other moments in time where you can step out and honor your own dream. And it's a demonstration of, it's a Dennis Rodman principle in action. It's a demonstration of a knowledge and a bearings of this realm in time and space. And it's a way of disentangling in consciousness and in practice from the matrix dream, which we've been born into. This here left is, I don't know what you would call this, like an insignia. I made this. This is from my initials. So you've got an M, you've got a W, this is a K, and that's an N, and that's mkwann, or the initials of mkwann. And as I've said many times, mkwann phonetically means feather in Algonquin. So it's kind of like in a bird, but it's got a compass feel to it, right? It's got that point right here. Here's the bird head, and I've got the letters around here, kind of like a compass, like you could see right here. That's what it's playing upon. It's a playfulness. It's a playfulness of my own, my own dream in the greater dream, and being able to move within and without the paradigm matrix. Like, this is a way in which one begins to become lucid in the dream, because they start speaking in the language of the dream. And what I want to share right now, this is a birthday present I received, and I want to give my good friend Liz Cat an appropriate attention. She made this for me for my birthday. She's a custom jewelry maker, and this is her Instagram account. And I'd recommend, if her style resonates with you, go and check it out, because she's got a lot of beautiful stuff. But she made this emblem for me based upon this, and so that was my birthday gift. It's funny how everything works. So I'm looking at the time right now. The time from when I started recording to right now. I'm about 44 minutes into it. So let's see. I'm going to go through a whole bunch of slides right now, but this is going to be some real meat. So, one, go check out Liz Cat's stuff. Thank you, Liz, for the thoughtfulness. And now we're going to go into the deep stuff. Now might be a time to take a break before we get into it, because we're going to go and really begin to understand the sun and the moon. And there's a little surprise treat at the end. So, here we go. This is a model. I'm not exactly certain if this is what's going on, but at least how we experience and how we've been conditioned to think about what this realm is, this makes sense. So imagine yourself right here. This is you standing on land, and you're standing facing south. And if you're facing south, if you're above or north of the equator, that would put west on your right, east on your left, north or behind you. And from this perspective, you're going to see from the east, there's this band, and this band is the ecliptic. And the sun, everything, all the heavenly bodies all rise in the east. They come up beneath this line, and they reach a high point, and they go down. Quick pivot. There are other models that I've seen which talk about, what the actual nature of what this realm looks like. And we get into the firmament, we get into flat earth and stuff like that. And the topic really interests me and fascinates me, and I've spent time there, but I don't necessarily I haven't reached my own personal conclusion on what I think might be an accurate description. What I do know is different models have different things which are easily understood in those models. And so because of that, I'm kind of using a mixture of the two different models of explaining what we see when we see the sunrise and sunset. But I know some models just say that the sun never goes beneath us, but it goes so far away that it appears to be dark. I don't think that's accurate, but maybe I'll record that in a different video. But I'm not throwing that model's out with that baby with the bathwater. Like, I think there might be something really to it, but it's not just from my own observational experiences. I don't think that that's an accurate description. I think this seems to be more accurate, but there could be more to it. That's just my caveat. So going back to this, so what happens is you see the sun rise, the moon rise, everything rises in the east, it goes to the highest, it comes down in the west, and then it pops back up in the east later. All right, so let's go look at my chart. I was born on a full moon. A full moon, this is you standing right here on Earth, when the moon and the sun are opposite each other. And that means if the moon and the sun are opposite each other, when the sun sets, the moon rises. That happens every full moon. The full moon rises when the sun sets. And you could see, I was born at 7:30 p.m. The moon is low in the horizon. So this is the horizon. This would be high in the horizon. So it's close to the horizon at 7:30. So you've got a big full moon, and it's opposite the sun. And then we know where the moon and the sun are as it relates to the celestial realm by the location of the zodiac. So now let's go look at this. So this is you standing on Earth. This east is to the left. If you're facing south and you're facing the horizon, the east is going to be down here and the west is going to be down there. But you're kind of like seeing three directions, I guess, if you will. So this, you could see the moon. This is what it looked like at 7:30. Let's go backwards a little bit. Check out these graphics. So this is what we experience. We experience so the sun rotates like that. And if you look at this point right here, this is what they mean by the rising sign, like what's ever on the horizon at a given time. The sun sets and now the moon rises up. And now the full moon is at its highest point. Now keep in mind, the sun and the moon are also moving in the opposite direction, or orbiting as this is all going on, but they move much slower. But this is kind of like what that motion looks like. And the reason why I'm showing it to you that way is because you can think about it like a clock. Remember in the beginning I talked about these are all the same. These are the same mechanisms of understanding, of gaining your bearings. When you can see how they're connected and you can see like they're explaining the same phenomenon, or at least models trying to explain the same phenomenon, well then you're disentangled more so. So all right, so it works just like this. Just like the hour hand is the sun and the minute hand is the moon, and they work like this. Right now on this clock, it says it's what? It's like, this is probably not accurate, but it's implying that's 11:05, right? So if the moon were to go, or the minute hand were to go all the way around, it will eventually catch the sun, but it'll catch the sun at 12. So let's go see this. And it's the same thing, so let's see it this way. So you've got like, this is what 12 o'clock looks like, this is what 1 o'clock looks like, this is what 1:05 looks like. Like there's a difference. Like in the amount of time the minute hand takes to go all the way around here, the slower moving hour clock hand moves. This is exactly like this, which is exactly like this, which is exactly like this. You're seeing the same thing over and over and over again. You can begin to see that these are rhythms, and you can see these rhythms can be understood all around us. So this movement corresponds with like what a new moon, full moon, and their movements, and understanding the zodiac actually is as well. So let's say we're going to deal with the new moon. Each one of these, whether we call them numbers or we call them signs, they're recognizing 12 different equal parts on the circle, and they can be interchanged. So we can look at this right now, that the new moon, the definition, I told you right here that the full moon is when the moon and the sun are opposite each other. The new moon is when they are at the same place. That's why you don't see the moon, because the light of the sun blocks out the moon. And so for the amount of time to occur for the next new moon, what happens is this moon will go all the way around the zodiac, or all the way around the clock. It'll make a full loop. And, the midway point would be the full moon, which would be 12:30. This is 12 o'clock. 12:30, you could see the moon is opposite the sun. That's what the full moon is. That's what this is. They're opposite each other. And then eventually, this moon will become closer and closer to the sun until it's going to be the next new moon. And when will the next new moon be? It will be at the 1, because the sun moves also during this time period. It has a 12-to-1 ratio, which means that when the moon moves 12 units, the sun moves 1 unit. That's the rhythm. That's the ratio. There's their own relationship of just the moon speed. So I said this in the beginning. I said that the moon, it takes the moon 25 days, I think it's 25 days, maybe it's 27 days, to make a full orbit, but it takes 29 days from new moon to new moon, because from here to here, that's a full orbit, but that doesn't bring you to another new moon, because that's 1 hour, or that's 25 days, but then to come to the next new moon, that is the lunation. This is the rhythm which we are underneath all the time. It is explained, like people who kind of follow this would be into the astrology world, and they would talk about, or anyone who follows the moon, they're going to talk about the moon like, this is the time to manifest, and this is the time to let go, and this is the time to do this, and this is the time to do that. Or the moon is in this sign, or the moon is in that sign, and it means this and that, and this and that. And those are just dreams. And that doesn't necessarily mean don't do it. It doesn't mean it's bad, because it's a dream world. You're going to do a dream no matter what you do. But when you begin to understand what's happening, and you have discernment, so discernment comes before judgment. Judgment decides how you want to place your time and attention. When you begin at the discernment level, you are disentangling in consciousness from the dream of the paradigm. Like, that's what I mean. Like, the whole thing is like interrelated. It's like you can't just like learn about the movements of the sun without a recognition of the dreamlike reality and the dream of the matrix. Like, you know, and like an astronomer or like an astrophysicist, they're looking at, the typical one at least is going to be looking at all of these movements. And yes, they probably are going to look at it from a discernment level, but they never bring it to the dream level. They never bring it to the dream level. And what we're doing is being lucid in the dream and disentangled from the matrix. Like it's a thing. And by doing this, something else happens. That's the Dennis Rodman principle. All right. Hopefully that made sense. And natural astrology starts with looking at the sky. And then you realize that when you're looking at the sky, you're actually seeing the, is the same thing when you see an astro chart. This is looking at the sky. This is facing south, east to the left, west to your right. That's this. This is all the same thing. Watch the sun right here. Watch that movement of the sun. You see that movement of the sun, which I'm about to show you? How the sun goes across like that? That's what this is. That's what this is showing you. That's showing you this. That's what we're talking about. And you will be able to understand time by knowing where the sun is, like in this line. When you go out in real time, in reality, like, and you go and you see the sun right here, you don't see these other dots. But when you begin to become familiar enough with where the ecliptic is and what you're looking at, it will just make sense. But at 9 a.m., the sun is more or less right here. You know, 7 a.m., the sun is approximately here. At 12 p.m., every day, the sun is like this. The sun is here at 3 p.m., and this is where the sun sets. Now, keep in mind, the arc of the sun will change throughout the year. It will be higher in what we call summer and lower in what we call winter. And the moon does the opposite, the movement of the moon, but it's still following the same path. So we see it this way. In astrology charts, they have these things called the houses, the 12th house, the 11th house, the 7th house. Those are the houses that are above the circle. 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7. 12, 11, 10, 8, 9, 7. If you're facing south and the east is your left and the west is on your right, you can describe the part of the sky. It doesn't matter what time of day. This is the 12th house. This is the 11th house. This is the 10th house. In the morning, the sun goes through the 12th house. Then the morning, late morning, the sun goes through the 11th house and then the 10th house until it reaches the midheaven. That's what the top of it's called. Like, all of this is this, it's the same symbols, it's the same model, it's the same compass. It's just using it a little bit differently. And when you begin to see how they interconnect, you can use them interchangeably. Doesn't matter what time of the year, this is always true. You can go and see, this is the sun. Because the sun is the most dominant, the sun, we use a system which is based upon the sun's orbit. By definition, the new day, the sunrise happens when the sun goes across enters the 12th house, if you will. That's how they would say it in astrology. But if we decided to go by completely the moon and have the moon rise, the most important thing, well, the moon will rise. It might be daylight out or it might be dark out. The moon is less consistent. We just use the sun because it's more consistent and it makes more sense. But the same logic of when the moon rises in the 12th house, then it goes in the 11th house. All of that's true for all of the heavenly bodies. When you understand the system, like it's all the same system. It's like a clock. It's like a watch. You've been conditioned your entire life to understand it. It's been in front of you the entire time. The sun has risen and set. The moon is set. The Jupiter, Mars, Venus, they've all risen and set around you every single day, whether you're aware of it or not. All right. So we're going to go into this. We got about 10 more minutes into this. And this is, you know, for those of you who are still here, like there's going to be, you know, I'm leading somewhere. I've got something to reveal at the end. So here's another concept which would be helpful to for understanding this relationship between time and space. So imagine this is you right here, and let's think of this circle as a merry-go-round, as a carousel, and you're standing in the center of it, and you're not really, I guess you're spinning around a little bit if you're standing in the center. Yeah, you are. And let's say there are two balls on the carousel, or circles, I guess that would be better because a ball would roll. There's one here, and they're in an alignment with you, and you're looking at them. And there are, let's say that these green lines don't move. We're going to use those green lines to understand the space. And what we're interested in is watching the red and blue circles. Because they're a carousel, they're going to be in alignment, and they're going to go from this point, and they're going to both reach this green line at the same moment. And let's say you're here watching them, and you even got a stopwatch in your hand. They're going to reach this green line at the same moment. And let's say it takes 1 second. Let's say 10 seconds. 1 second's too fast. So in 10 seconds, like you can imagine this whole circle, like these two move as if this line. So we pull this line down, and both this circle and the red and the blue, they reach the green line at the same time. So the amount of time, you know, measured of time from here to here is the same, the time. But the amount of space which the red goes through and the amount of space which the blue goes through are different. Like they would describe it by saying like, well, the blue is moving faster. It's moving through that space faster. Now, the reason why I'm bringing this up is because this is a dream. So like stuff doesn't, like it's confusing. It's paradoxical, right? And you've been conditioned, and there's a desire to want to have something solid to explain all of this stuff as. So just work with me for a little bit, because I'm going there with this example. So just remember this. We're gonna come back to this in a moment. So it is like it's real, like from an observation perspective of two things that are traveling for the same amount of time. One will travel through more space, and one will travel through less space. So now we're going to introduce the theory of relativity. And we know within the matrix paradigm, like that's a big deal, and Einstein's a big deal, and you know everyone knows who Einstein is, and there's a lot which you can say about Einstein. But what we can definitely say, it's a big deal, and E equals MC squared is like, even though most people might not necessarily know what that's implying, they'll know what it is. Like it's the Einstein theory of relativity. And when they talk about the theory of relativity, they're dealing with space, time, mass, energy. And you know, one of the things which they say, you know, one of the rules which they say, which has been deduced from the theory of relativity, is in this one example, if there were an observer, and then let's say that this blue and this red were like two individuals, and they begin with the blue and red at the same place, and you're watching it, and then the blue goes at the speed of light for, like, let's say 5 minutes out, and then comes back to and returns, like for 5 minutes does the speed of light. What's going to happen is in that time, which just feels like 5 minutes for the blue person who goes the speed of light, the person who is red, who stayed still, who didn't go anywhere and did not travel at the speed of light, they would age, let's say, 20 years. And this person only experienced the 5 minutes which they were gone. That's what the theory of relativity is kind of talking about. They're saying that it literally, that the physical expression changes based upon speed. And that's like the dreamiest stuff you've ever heard. You're like, what? Yeah, well, because this person's going fast, and relative to that person, not only do they experience time differently, but they actually change. And in this example, which they've talked about a lot, about the spaceship traveling at the speed of light, they say that a ruler becomes smaller. This is where it gets really interesting, because it would still say it's 12 inches. It'll still be a ruler, but everything like constricts. It becomes smaller. And this is where it gets really interesting in understanding the dreamlike nature of reality. That shouldn't make sense. Like, that shouldn't happen. We want to say that it's fixed. Reality is fixed. And what the theory of relativity is saying is like, no, it's relative. It's relative. And it's not just it's relative in two different ways, because the second experiment, which they talk about, or the example of what they refer to with the theory of relativity, is you put your hand on a hot stove for a minute and it seems like an hour. Sit with a pretty girl for an hour and it seems like a minute. That's relativity. That is, that's not exactly part of the theory of relativity, but in the paradigm dream, that statement has been tied into it. And so what they're saying is that not only is time and space relative, or the actual material reality can change based upon that relativity. But then in this example, they're saying the feeling sense, like being human, traveling at the speed of light on a spaceship isn't really an available thing to you. It's just an abstract concept of explaining relativity. And supposedly they've proven that in like CERN. But where it gets very experientially true is they're talking about the feeling sense. The feeling sense of everything from like being burnt on your hand, like putting your hand on the hot stove, versus the feeling sense of being or in the company of someone who you want to be around. And it's saying these are just as real. I mean, this is a dream. That is your feeling sense is just as real as everything else. Like, that is when we talk about the dreamlike quality of being human in this dreamscape. Like your feelings are just as real, and they can dilate and they can expand, just like everything expands, and everything is relative. So, where am I going with all this? All right, where am I going with all this? Because I am going somewhere with all of this. We are immensely, so there are many ways in which the Matrix dream works, is because there's so many dreamlike things that are happening behind the surface that you're still in a dream. Like, people can wake up to the fact of all of the mainstream media news and all of that being kind of like bullshit and that's not real. But that's still existing within another dream. It's in another dream, like, where you're always around. Like, this is where one loses themselves, where one begins to chase their tail, is because they're trying to get to the bottom of what is the truth, what is really happening, what is the news, what are the real mysteries, and all of that sort of stuff. You're not going to solve those questions until you begin to recognize that the dream that you're in is much bigger, or the paradigm dream is much, much bigger. That's why the Inception analogy, that movie, is so good, because you keep on waking up. You're like, well, was the whole movie just Leonardo's dream? Like, so the dream in Matrix is, the foundation has to do with the oscillation and movement of the sun and the moon. Really, this, where do I have it? Where's that slide? The sun and the moon movement that we're always underneath all the time, and the fact that it creates a full moon, the 12-to-1 ratio, that's what it is. Like, we're always around it. It's tied into all sorts of different stories, of mythologies, and it just blurs, and we're in that dream. We don't even realize it. And we become entrained to it, and we become entrained to everything on it. So this is where we're getting really interesting. So the sun and the moon ratio works. It's a 12-to-1 ratio. Doesn't matter that it's 12-to-1, just that it is 12-to-1. Maybe it does matter, but for the point of where we are right now, all we're concerned with the fact that it's 12-to-1. And why this is interesting is we can see within what they'll call the solar system, within the other heavenly bodies, there is another 12-to-1 ratio, and a 12-to-1 ratio, particularly with the sun. The sun is important because the sun is most dominant. And so the sun has a 12-to-1 ratio where there are 12 moon cycles to one solar cycle, but there are 12 solar cycles to one Jupiter cycle, which then also equates to there's 144 cycles to one Jupiter cycle. The reason why this matters is they're just different rhythms to get involved with. The dream is you're on the 12-1 ratio. The quote unquote objective is to become lucid in the dream and disentangled from the matrix. And the matrix is so grounded on the 12-1 ratio in every aspect. And so unless you move out of it, you're always in it. Like, you don't even recognize it. You don't understand that you're underwater until you're taken outside of water. That's you don't know what gravity, assuming gravity is a thing, you don't know what air pressure feels like until you're no longer under that air pressure. So now we're looking at the Jupiter cycle, and what's so significant about the Jupiter cycle is because it works on the same ratio, the 12-to-1 ratio, as the one that everyone is so entrained underneath, it is easier to pick up. This realm works by factors and fractals. Like a factor mathematically is like numbers that make up other numbers. Like, you can take a number and it's made up of other numbers. 20 is made up of 10, like 2 10s or 4 5s. That's like called factoring. This realm works with numbers, and they can stack together just like Russian dolls. And the entrainment happens with greater ease, or with no friction or less friction when they're lined up. So the movement to a Jupiter timing is theoretically very easy, because, or maybe not very easy, but it's in the same frequency. It's in the same factor, the factor frequency, this 12-to-1 ratio. So why does that matter? Part of the paradigm, how it's working right now, is they're trying to squeeze more and more and more information into less and less and less and less space. Now, as a human being, as one who is having the experience in this dream, that's often going to feel like there's many things to do. There's stuff that needs to be done. There's going to be a sense of being overwhelmed. There's too much to do and not enough space. But what we can see right here is, through this theory of relativity, that time and space there is play there. That right here, that in the same time, that the blue has a whole lot more space to do things than the red does in the same amount of time. And when you see that you now have a clock where this goes, for every 12 circles that this hand goes around, this one goes around once, and for every 12 times this goes around, this one goes around. It's like one of those clocks, if you will, that like you could see when the gears line up. The Dennis Rodman principle is the awareness of when the gears line up, particularly as it relates to you and your chart, for the simple purpose of knowing when it's happening. Now, none of this negates the fact that being human is a feeling experience, but we don't move into the feeling experience until we first get our bearings. We first get our bearings. And so that, my friends, when I'm talking about getting your bearings, is becoming lucid in the dream and disentangled from the matrix. And then you ask yourself, what am I left with? What does my experience become once I find myself in this position? So this is now me winding up this video. This was a lot, and I hope that many of you have made it to this point, and perhaps maybe watched a couple of the pieces over a few times, because I recognize, like, this is complex to explain, but it's important to understand it rationally with discernment in order to become free of the entanglement which has been indoctrinated upon all of our consciousness. So that being said, here are the 3 offerings which I'm doing right now. So, personal holy days. I've talked about this a bunch, and I've recently gotten some questions about it. Personal holy days, they begin with just days. The same logic which is used for understanding your solar return is used looking at the rest of your chart to identify these personal holy days. And it is through the practice of just recognizing these holy days, of incorporating them in your experiential life, and the fact that they hold no value in the paradigm, and because they are grounded in understanding timing, you are becoming, in practice, disentangled from the paradigm. So, personal holy days. If you want me to figure those days out for you, I can do that. And I've got some information which has some recommendations on what to do and what the different personal holy days are about. An accurate birth time is helpful. The second thing is the personal holy days with the Astro analysis. The Astro analysis is kind of like, what I've called starboards in the past, but it's a combination of the two, where I look at your chart and I tell your story. But the purpose of the story is to begin to move away from the dream version of who and what you are. And often that needs to be seen. And so to be able to have your dream kind of witnessed, like saying it's a dream does not devalue any experiences anyone has. What it does is it challenges the story in the way which you've understood it. And so an astro analysis then coupled also with the days, so that you can have your dream witnessed, and then also provided with dates in order to begin to become disentangled, from the matrix and your own dream, and to become lucid. That is an offering which I'm doing for $244. And then lastly, the grounding consciousness course. This has been a lot of fun for me, like hearing from people who would make offers. Like some go high, some go low. There's a little bit of an exchange. So let's keep doing that. Like this grounding consciousness course is all of this sort of stuff. It's this becoming familiar with this relationship between paradigm and stories and meaning and time and timing, all for the purpose of becoming lucid in your own life. Like, so if you want, make me an offer, send me an email, tell me, make me a birthday offer for it, and I can get those files to you. Or you could just go to Gumroad and buy it directly for $119. So that's it, my friends. This has been the latest thing that I've been working on. It's been, if you will, maybe even a birthday present to myself. Maybe I talk to you a little bit about it in the next video. Take care. Reach out. Until the next one, this is mkwann. Checking out.